The final 24 hours of Ray Allen, the oldest man on death row, faced the needle. Hi everyone, on his 76th birthday. Clarence Ray Allen didn't wake up to celebration. He woke up to a countdown. No candles, no visitors with balloons, just a plastic tray of powdered eggs and a ticking clock. After spending 23 years on death row, Allen was about to become one of the oldest inmates executed in United States history. Legally blind, nearly deaf, and confined to a wheelchair, he seemed more like a man waiting out his last years than someone fit for state-sanctioned execution. But the justice system saw it differently. Allen wasn't just any inmate, he was a convicted mastermind who orchestrated 3 killings from behind bars. And as midnight approached on January 17th, 2006, the question hung heavy in the air: should age and illness ever outweigh accountability? Stay with us as we walk through the haunting final 24 hours of Clarence Ray Allen, where mercy, law, and legacy collided for the last time. Dear friends, on the morning of January 16th, 2006, Clarence Ray Allen opened his eyes in San Quentin State Prison. It was his 76th birthday, but it would also be his last. The sterile walls of death row offered no celebration, no warmth, just the quiet shuffle of guards, the hum of fluorescent lights, and the knowledge that at midnight he would face lethal injection. For Allen, who had already spent more than 2 decades on death row. The day began like any other. Powdered eggs, a dry biscuit, grits, and milk slid through the meal slot. But this was no ordinary day. As he chewed the tasteless food, Allen knew he was facing down the final hours of a sentence that began long before the gurney was ever prepared. The story of Clarence Ray Allen didn't begin in that cold prison cell. It began with a string of decisions that shocked California. Already serving a life sentence for arranging the murder of his former business partner, Allen had done something few expected. From behind bars, he ordered the executions of 3 more people: Byron Schledowitz, Douglas White, and Josephine Rocha. Why? Because they had testified against him. Allen paid a fellow inmate $25,000 to ensure their silence permanent silence. The hit was carried out in 1980 at Franz Market in Fresno. When investigators pieced together the plot, the evidence pointed directly back to Allen. He was tried again, convicted again, and sentenced to death in 1982. Yet the execution didn't happen quickly. It never does. For 23 years, Allen remained on death row, outliving most inmates, outlasting several execution dates. During that time, his health deteriorated. Diabetes, heart disease, legal blindness, and near deafness left him frail and wheelchair-bound. But the state of California pressed on. His crimes were considered an attack not just on individual lives, but on the justice system itself, a calculated move to erase witnesses, undermine the law, and send a message that prison couldn't cage his reach. As January 16th wore on, Allen's legal team made a final push. One last clemency appeal reached the Supreme Court. Justice Stephen Breyer alone voiced concern, questioning whether executing a man so elderly and sick could be considered cruel and unusual punishment. But the rest of the court remained silent. The appeal was denied without comment. It was over. Meanwhile, outside the prison, a crowd gathered. Protesters, supporters, journalists, about 300 people in total, held signs, sang John Lennon songs, and braced themselves for what was coming. Some protested the execution on principle. Others believed Allen, despite his crimes, should be spared due to age and time served. Still others were there simply to witness history, one of the oldest inmates ever executed in the United States. Inside, Allen spent the afternoon visiting with loved ones. Among them was Lorraine Vaughn, a relative who told reporters later that Allen seemed ready and at peace. Around 3:30 in the afternoon, they posed for a few photos. She kissed him on the cheek and whispered, "I love you." He didn't smile, but he nodded. The day was slipping away, and Allen seemed to know it. At 6 o'clock in the evening, prison officials escorted Allen to the Deathwatch cell. It was small, clinical, and just steps from the execution chamber. There was a television and a radio, but he ignored both. Instead, he lay down quietly for half an hour, staring at the ceiling, his mind, perhaps, already gone to another place. At 7 o'clock that evening, his final meal was served buffalo steak, a bucket of KFC white meat only, sugar-free pecan pie, black walnut ice cream, and milk. The staff left the ice cream out to soften. Allen liked it mashed into a milkshake. It was a small kindness on a day mostly devoid of them. He ate slowly, deliberately, savoring what would be the last flavors he'd ever taste. As midnight approached, the air inside San Quentin thickened with tension. Reporters took their places. Corrections officers began preparing the chamber. Clarence Ray Allen, the man at the center of it all, remained composed. At exactly 12 o'clock midnight, the steel door opened. 2 guards supported him as he walked unassisted 5 slow steps to the gurney. Despite his age and ailments, Allen hoisted himself up and lay flat on the cross-shaped table. He wore a beaded headband, green, red, and yellow, and around his neck, a white beaded necklace. In his hand, a gray and white feather, symbolizing his Choctaw heritage. Just before the black straps were tightened around his limbs, Allen placed the feather over his chest, a final act of spiritual defiance. From 5 minutes past 12 to 17 minutes past 12, the medical team inserted 2 IV lines, one alongside an eagle tattoo on his arm. The process went smoother than most, only taking 7 minutes, half the usual time. When everything was in place, Allen gave his final words. He thanked his friends and family, his legal team, and his spiritual advisors. He sent messages of love to fellow death row inmates. Then, calmly and clearly, he closed with Hoka, "Hey, it's a good day to die. Thank you all. I love you. Goodbye." At 19 minutes past 12, the warden gave the order. Sodium pentothal entered Allen's bloodstream first, sending him into unconsciousness. Then, pancuronium bromide to paralyze. Finally, potassium chloride to stop his heart. Allen's eyes remained open as the first drug took hold, fixed on his family behind the glass. He never looked away. At 38 minutes past 12, Clarence Ray Allen was pronounced dead. It was January 17th, 2006. His 76th birthday had ended with the ultimate sentence carried out. Some saw justice fulfilled. Others saw a frail man executed past the point of meaning. But the law had spoken. Clarence Ray Allen's story was over, written in the ink of death, time, and the cold machinery of justice. In the final moments of Clarence Ray Allen's life, the question wasn't just whether justice had been served, it was whether time had changed the meaning of that justice. Here was a man who, decades earlier, orchestrated calculated and deadly crimes from behind bars, acts that struck at the very heart of the legal system. Yet when the moment of reckoning came, he was no longer the cold, calculating figure from the courtroom. He was frail, blind, diabetic, and wheelchair-bound far from the image of a feared killer. His execution reopened a national conversation about age, illness, and the morality of capital punishment. Did the state execute a dangerous criminal, or a diminished man who no longer posed a threat? Whatever side one stands on, Clarence Ray. Allen's case forces us to examine what justice really means when decades pass between crime and punishment. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and stay with us for more final hours.